Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our 8th Destination Reader session of Matilda by Roald Dahl. Remember, there are keywords in red, questions for you to answer in blue, and writing time written in green. Please check you have a copy of the story, a strategy prompt sheet, a pencil, and a piece of paper or your home learning book. Let's begin. Matilda by Roald Dahl. We're going to continue with strategy number 3 today, inference. I would like you to have a think about if you remember what inference means, and I would also like you to remind yourself why good readers make inferences. You can say your answer out loud, or perhaps have a discussion at home, and then I would like you to make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press pause now to say your ideas and then note them down, and then press play once you're ready. Inference means to read between the lines. If you are making inferences, you are looking for clues in the text to help you understand more. Authors sometimes leave key information out so that the reader wants to keep reading to find out more. Well done if you got that answer. We're on to our vocabulary for today. Our first word is formidable. Formidable, which means causing fear through being powerful. Our next word, porcelain. Porcelain, which is a white, translucent ceramic. We're also going to come across the word tyrannical. Tyrannical, which is when somebody uses power in a cruel way to their advantage. And our last word of today is eccentricity. Eccentricity, which is the quality of being unconventional and slightly strange. Let's recap how to answer 1 and 2 mark questions. 1 mark questions need a short, snappy answer. 2 mark questions need a point evidence answer, point and evidence. Remember, your point is the main idea that you want to talk about, and evidence is where you prove your point using facts, figures, and examples. Well done if you remembered what both of those questions require. Right, let's begin reading. We're on page 60 and we're reading the chapter Miss Honey. I will read and you will follow along. I will stop at certain points to ask you questions. Remember, all of these questions will be based around inferring. Matilda was a little late in starting school. Most children begin primary school at 5, or even just before, but Matilda's parents, who weren't very concerned one way or the other about their daughter's education, had forgotten to make the proper arrangements in advance. She was 5.5 when she entered school for the first time. I remember in one of my lessons last week, I had a question about why Matilda wasn't at school and why she was able to be in the library every day. My question's now been answered, so this shows me that if I continue to read on, sometimes my questions are answered. The village school for younger children was a bleak brick building called Cruncham Hall Primary School. It had about 250 pupils aged from 5 to just under 12 years old. The head teacher, the boss, the supreme commander of this establishment, was a formidable middle-aged lady whose name was Miss Trunchbull. Naturally, Matilda was put in the bottom class, where there were 18 other small boys and girls about the same age as her. Their teacher was called Miss Honey, and she could not have been more than 23 or 24. She had a lovely pale oval Madonna face with blue eyes, and her hair was light brown. Her body was so slim and fragile, one got the feeling that if she fell over, she would smash into 1,000 pieces like a porcelain figure. And there's another one of our vocabulary words. Remind yourself of what the word porcelain means. Miss Jennifer Honey was a mild and quiet person who never raised her voice and was seldom seen to smile. But there is no doubt she possessed that rare gift for being adored by every small child under her care. She seemed to understand totally the bewilderment and fear that so often overwhelm young children, who for the first time in their lives are herded into a classroom and told to obey orders. Some curious warmth was almost tangible shone out of Miss Honey's face when she spoke to a confused and homesick newcomer to the class. We're going to stop there. I have a question I would like to ask you. I would like you to find and copy the phrase that suggests that Miss Honey rarely gets cross with her class for 1 mark. Remind yourself of what kind of answer a 1 mark question is going to need. I'd like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you are ready to continue. Brilliant! Miss Jennifer Honey was a mild and quiet person who never raised her voice. This shows me that she rarely gets cross with her class because she doesn't like to raise her voice and she's quite a quiet person. So that means that in most situations, she remains calm. Let's continue. Miss Trunchbull, the headmistress, was something else altogether. She was a gigantic holy terror, a fierce tyrannical monster who frightened the life out of the pupils and teachers alike. There was an aura of menace about her, even at a distance, and when she came up close you could almost feel the dangerous heat radiating from her, as from a red-hot rod of metal. When she marched, Miss Trunchbull never walked. She always marched like a stormtrooper, with long strides and arms a-swinging. When she marched along a corridor, you could actually hear her snorting as she went. And if a group of children happened to be in her path, she ploughed right on through them like a tank, with small people bouncing off her to left and right. Thank goodness we don't meet many people like her in this world. Although they do exist, and all of us are likely to come across at least one of them in a lifetime. If you ever do, you should behave as you would if you met an enraged rhinoceros out in the bush. Climb up the nearest tree and stay there until it has gone away. This woman, in all her eccentricities and in her appearance, is almost impossible to describe. Have a think about what the word eccentricity meant. But I shall make some attempt to do so a little later on. And we're going to stop again. I would like you to find and copy the word suggesting that Miss Trunchbull is a mean character for 1 mark. That means that your answer should be, well done, it should be short and snappy. I'd like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you have done this. Great. The word suggesting that Miss Trunchbull is a mean character is monster. The author has compared Miss Trunchbull to a monster, which means that she's not a very nice person. Let's continue. Let us leave her for the moment and go back to Matilda and her first day in Miss Honey's class. After the usual business of going through all the names of the children, Miss Honey handed out a brand new exercise book to each pupil. You have all brought your own pencils, I hope, she said. Yes, Miss Honey, they chanted. Good. Now this is the very first day of school for each one of you. It is the beginning of at least 11 long years of schooling that all of you are going to have to go through. And 6 of those years will be spent right here at Crunchem Hall, where, as you know, your headmistress is Miss Trunchbull. Let me, for your own good, tell you something about Miss Trunchbull. She insists upon strict discipline throughout the school, and if you take my advice, you will do your very best to behave yourselves in her presence. Never argue with her. Never answer her back. Always do as she says. If you get on the wrong side of Miss Trunchbull, she can liquidize you like a carrot in a kitchen blender. It's nothing to laugh about, Lavender. Take that grin off your face. All of you will be wise to remember that Miss Trunchbull deals very, very severely with anyone who gets out of line in this school. Have you got the message? Yes, Miss Honey, chirruped 18 eager little voices. I myself, Miss Honey went on, want to help you learn as much as possible while you are in this class. That is because I know it will make things easier for you later on. For example, by the end of this week, I shall expect every one of you to know the 2 times table by heart. And in a year's time, I hope you will all know the multiplication tables up to 12. It will help you enormously if you do. Now then, do any of you have happened to have learnt the 2 times table already? Matilda put up her hand. She was the only one. Miss Honey looked carefully at the tiny girl with dark hair and a round, serious face sitting in the second row. Wonderful, she said. Please stand up and recite as much of it as you can. Matilda stood up and began to say the 2 times table. When she got to twice 12 is 24, she didn't stop. She went right on with twice 13 is 26, twice 14 is 28, twice 15 is 30, twice 16 is... Stop! Miss Honey said. She had been listening, slightly spellbound to this smooth recital, and now she said, How far can you go? How far? Matilda said. Well, I don't really know, Miss Honey. For quite a long way, I think. Miss Honey took a few moments to let this curious statement sink in. We're going to stop again and answer a question. Why do you think Miss Honey finds what Matilda said curious for 2 marks? Remind yourself of what kind of answer a 2-mark question is going to need now. Well done. It's going to need to have a point and evidence. I would like you to say your answer out loud to the question and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Well done. Your answer should be something like this. I think Miss Honey finds what Matilda said curious because she would not expect a child of Matilda's age to know their 2 times tables past 12. Miss Honey was listening, slightly spellbound, which suggests that she is fascinated by Matilda. I've used the sentence stem, I think. I've used because to explain why I think my main point, and I've also used evidence from the text, which refers to how Miss Honey was listening to Matilda when she was reciting her times tables. Let's continue. You mean, she said, that you could tell me what 2 times 28 is? Yes, Miss Honey. What is it? 56, Miss Honey. What about something much harder, like 2 times 487? Could you tell me that? I think so, yes, Matilda said. Are you sure? Why, yes, Miss Honey, I'm fairly sure. What is it then? 2 times 487? 974, Matilda said immediately. She spoke quietly and politely and without any sign of showing off. Miss Honey gazed at Matilda with absolute amazement, but when next she spoke, she kept her voice level. That is really splendid, she said. But of course, multiplying by 2 is a lot easier than some of the bigger numbers. What about the other multiplication tables? Do you know any of those? I think so, Miss Honey. I think I do. Which ones, Matilda? How far have you got? I don't quite know, Matilda said. I don't know what you mean. What I mean is, do you, for instance, know the 3 times table? Yes, Miss Honey. And the 4 times? Yes, Miss Honey. Well, how many do you know, Matilda? Do you know all the way up to the 12 times table? Yes, Miss Honey. What are 12 sevens? 84, Matilda said. Miss Honey paused and leaned back into her chair, behind the plain table that stood in the middle of the floor in front of the class. She was considerably shaken by this exchange, but took care not to show it. She had never come across a 5-year-old before, or indeed a 10-year-old who could multiply with such facility. I hope the rest of you are listening to this, she said to the class. Matilda is a very lucky girl. She has wonderful parents who have already taught her to multiply lots of numbers. Was it your mother, Matilda, who taught you? No, Miss Honey, it wasn't. You must have a great father then. He must be a brilliant teacher. No, Miss Honey, Matilda said quietly. My father did not teach me. You mean you taught yourself? I don't quite know, Matilda said truthfully. It's just that I don't find it very difficult to multiply one number by another. Miss Honey took a deep breath and let it out slowly. She looked again at the small girl with bright eyes standing beside her desk, so sensible and solemn. You say you don't find it difficult to multiply one number by another, Miss Honey said. Could you try to explain that a little bit? Oh dear, Matilda said. I'm not really sure. Miss Honey waited. The class was silent, all listening. For instance, Miss Honey said, if I asked you to multiply 14 by 19... No, that's too difficult. It's 266, Matilda said softly. Miss Honey stared at her. Then she picked up a pencil and quickly worked out the sum on a piece of paper. What did you say it was? She said, looking up. 266, Matilda said. Miss Honey put down her pencil and removed her spectacles and began to polish the lenses with a piece of tissue. The class remained quiet, watching her and waiting for what was coming next. Matilda was still standing up beside her desk. Now, tell me, Matilda, Miss Honey said, still polishing. Try to tell me exactly what goes on inside your head when you get a multiplication like that to do. You obviously have to work it out in some way, but you seem to be able to arrive at the answer almost instantly. Take the one you've just done, 14 multiplied by 19. I simply put the 14 down in my head and multiply it by 19, Matilda said. I'm afraid I don't know how else to explain it. I've always said to myself that if a little pocket calculator can do it, why shouldn't I? Why not indeed, Miss Honey said. The human brain is an amazing thing. We're going to stop our 8th lesson there. I know you want to read on, but we will continue next lesson. But before we stop, I have one last question for you. How does Matilda feel about multiplication for 2 marks? You know that your answer is going to need to have a well done. It's going to need to have a main point and a piece of evidence. Say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you are ready. Good job, Year 5. I think Matilda enjoys multiplication because she seems determined to spend time practicing difficult calculations. Matilda does not find it very difficult to multiply one number by another, which suggests that she is quite good at maths. So I have used my sentence stem, I think. I've used because to explain my main point. And I've also used a piece of evidence from the text to back up why I think this. So I think that she enjoys it because she doesn't find it very difficult. It's something that is kind of second nature to her. Well done if you used your main point and used a piece of evidence from the text. It's okay if your answer is slightly different to mine. I would love if you could send them to the class mailbox so I could read them. Tomorrow we will continue reading the chapter Miss Honey and we will carry on making inferences. As an extra task, on your piece of paper or in your home learning book, you can make a prediction about how you think Matilda will settle into her new school.